Hey, good afternoon, Manchester, New Hampshire, and all the surrounding areas. We have a very exciting show today with the honorable former Speaker of the House, right? Did I get that right?
Yes. You got the former right. Now, John still wants to debate the honorable part.
Yes.
There. I'm looking over at him, and
But
I'm
he's
saying,
still the honorable,
this guy's
right?
not going to let us get away
William
with that.
O'Brien, okay? And the Honorable John Burt, who will be the next Speaker of the House.
Well, I'm hoping.
Okay, we never hope. We have to know, right?
I'll certainly
My
concede the
ability,
honorable part.
And, it is so fantastic to see that the Republicans, folks, are taking the state back.
Yes. Yeah, we did a great job on the election day yesterday.
Did they?
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the results.
Yeah, no, I think it was pretty strong results.
Yeah.
Really were. I think we managed to tighten up the caucus a little bit. I noticed that some members who are probably less conservative than their constituents
Yes.
are being told to stay home for at least a term and rethink that.
We
that
had one in
approach.
Goffstown.
Really?
There's one in Goffstown, yeah, one over in Hollis,
And one in Deering.
in Deering. So
Yes.
that's all to the good.
It is very to the good.
Yeah.
And and yesterday I did vote for a lot of winners, and I voted for a few losers. But back in the '90s when I lived in Vermont, I voted for a lot of losers because there was just no hope over there, sadly.
So I was up in Vermont last week. I host the
They
Writers.
let you in?
I snuck in.
Bernie Sanders? I was going to say they
snuck really?
they got a guard there.
Yeah,
Bernie.
I snuck in.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. You heard that? I have a friend of mine who's one of the officers on the Homeland Security, by the way. So
Really?
Oh,
Really?
yeah. She's one of the head boygers up there.
Is that right? So
she's a
I
Republican.
figured it's Vermont, so they don't care that I'm crossing borders illegally or anything. So I thought I could get away with that pretty readily, and then it turned out I could. But I went up there. I host the Writer Center meeting here in New Hampshire, where
Yes.
we have a meeting of all the various center and right groups. They actually have one in Vermont, and so I went. Well, at least they're organizing one. I went up there to talk with them. The Republican Party is a patient that isn't quite dead, but it's on life support. It's just awful.
It is. Yeah.
I understand that Bernie Sanders wouldn't even support his own son.
Oh, I don't know.
No,
I know
no,
he's
no.
running here.
Yeah, it's in
Yeah,
the-
no, he lost. He got
Yeah.
like 2%, 3%. I don't
That's
know.
it?
But his own,
Oh, I didn't see the
If
number.
Bernie Sanders both supported his own son, that's pretty bad. That was
Yeah.
a big write-up in
Well,
there.
maybe he figured out his son is a socialist. Oh, wait a minute. That's what he wants, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, maybe he's not socialist enough.
He probably isn't. He
Yes.
probably isn't. Well,
And it's just such a pleasure. I've been hoping to get you on for a long time, after seeing you on there with Gary. But I do believe that you're not out of politics yet.
not quite yet. Not
No.
quite yet.
You got
I mean, all
another
you had
10
to do is
years.
talk to my lieutenant here.
Yes.
And,
Well, I'm going to promote him to colonel,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
and you'll be
Then
lieutenant.
you
then.
command me around. Sure I won't.
It's a quiet joke between them two folks, okay? John, you actually have a big hot dog day, don't you?
I do at the State House, yes.
Now, do you go out to
7
the
years.
Democrats and maybe...
Oh, everybody's invited.
I mean, no, do you toast them up and turn them into hot dogs? Or?
Yes. No, I've done extremely well. 7 years. I can't believe it's been
Has
7
it been that long? Now, that
years.
started as a remark during debate on the House floor. Or
It
something.
did start on the House floor.
Yeah.
And
Really?
Yes, because what I did is I offered anybody that voted with me is to repeal the campfire permit that we have here in the state. And what it was is I said, because you always address everything to Mr. Speaker. I said, Mr. Speaker, if you or anybody votes with me, I will give you a hot dog at a campfire without a permit. With me or something, how I said it.
yeah.
Well, the whole place roared and clapped, and I almost won it. I remember, Bill and a few others says, "Geez, John, that was close." I think I was like 4 or 5 votes off from winning. Yeah, and but then another rep told me that I broke the law, and I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You just bribed 400 reps."
But that's assuming hot dogs have any value.
Well,
I'm not sure they do.
Yeah,
I think that I was a speaker at the time, I believe.
Yes, you were. Yeah.
And it came to me for a ruling, and I said, once again, John is offering nothing of value.
Yeah.
How long were you speaker?
Just for one term, 2010 to 2012.
Why do I feel like you kind of got shafted?
I think it's probably because I got shafted.
You didn't really
I don't know. No,
Because,
this is it's
politics.
It's just politics. It's not meant to be nice. And particularly on the other side of the aisle, they don't. conducted in a nice way. They don't choose words that are going to please their opponents. They're going to come out with a lot of epitaphs. And if you John well knows, because he's stepping up to be speaker as well, you're going to be subject to that kind of rhetoric. I assumed as much.
You know who I laugh at is the Democratic leader Ray Buckley. I think he's a joke.
Somebody said he makes, because he gets a percentage of the money that comes in, he makes close to $300,000. Is that true?
I've heard. I don't know 300,000. I've heard that he gets a lot of money. The chairman of the Republican state party gets paid nothing.
Yes,
it's a volunteer position in the tradition of New Hampshire. But we do know among the Democrats. I hate to be too partisan, but there's rhetoric and there's reality. The rhetoric is there for the small man, the forgotten man. The reality is that they're taking every bit of his resources they can and paying their state party officials $300,000 a year. And
whatever the number is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Bernie Sanders is all for the little guy, as he owns 3 houses, a DACA on Lake Champlain. He owns a house in another house in Vermont. He owns a house down in Washington. He's not part of anything other than the 1%.
And he's never worked at a real job. He went from welfare in the Bronx to Vermont on welfare and then into politics and became mayor. And
that was his first paying job.
Yes. So he's never held a real private job.
See, isn't that what a lot of these people, the liberals, they're so afraid of losing their government benefits?
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't lucky enough to get what they call the government stipend of benefits or anything like that,
Yeah, I've been pretty
you
much
and I have
stuck
always had to work our way.
I've been stuck in the dreaded private sector.
Yes.
Earning my own way, as with most of us.
One question I was going to check and I completely forgot. So, because you have callers that can call.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
If somebody can look this up for me, I wondered if Woodburn, what's his first name? The senator.
Is it Jeff?
Jeff Woodburn, if he won his district. And the reason I'm curious is because he's being accused of abusing a woman several times.
That's right. I don't think he had any opposition in the primary.
Well, I heard they had a write-in campaign.
Oh, okay.
But I talked to my friend Leon Rideout, and he thinks he won.
Okay.
I believe he won also.
So I'm thinking, well, what the Democrats up there support women abusers, or alleged women abusers?
It seems like, maybe I'm wrong. It seems like if a party person, folks, I'm Republican. I just said independent, get people going. I love doing that.
Oh yes,
you can't tell that, right? If you check out my website, I'm always getting people going. It seems like the worse that a person's history is, like Clinton got away with having that cigar. I'm on the air, so I can't say that, and like all the stuff that all the people that are in the political way, it seems like the worse they are, the better chance they have of getting elected. Maybe
so you remember some years back there was a senior Republican member of Congress who was accused essentially of being too noisy when he was by himself in a stall at an airport restroom. Do you remember that? And eventually it was somehow he was trying to entice others to join him in that stall. I don't know, some sort of crazy story. The end result was that he had to resign. Now we contrast that with a senior Democrat such as Keith Allison, who's running for Attorney General out in Minnesota, former member of Congress, the first and only Muslim member of Congress. By all reports, was beating the heck out of his girlfriend fairly regularly.
Yeah.
The girlfriend was complaining about it. The girlfriend's son, teenage son, was complaining about it. And that just seems to be okay. We have to understand that he's matured since then. It's been a year or two, so he's a little bit older. And he's still running. I gather he's won his primary out there, and given what Minnesota is, will probably be the next attorney general. So the Democrats have put forward and going to give Minnesota as a chief law enforcement officer someone who's been credibly accused of domestic violence.
Well, look at the guy that's running, who's running from Congress, whose father was in charge of murdering all these people I forgot his name now. I just read about it on Facebook today, and he looks like he's leading the polls out there.
Huh.
Okay.
Now, that I hadn't heard about. Huh.
Yeah, you have to go on Facebook. Look at what's her name? Police there, that woman.
Oh, Nancy.
Nancy.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God! I have never met such a psycho lady in my life. I'm reading it. It's all true.
You know what? If we had media that was intent on informing us as to relevant information
Yes.
rather than providing ongoing coverage of Democrat misdeeds, we would know, for example, that Pelosi's husband is a significant recipient in San Francisco of federal housing funds, and they have made a huge fortune out there. He's now worth, my understanding is, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Now he owns the buildings that got them.
He's basically pulled the Lyndon Johnson trick that we see Democrats do. Lyndon Johnson talked about how he went to Congress having been a school teacher with, I don't know, $38 or $83 in his pocket or something like that. By the time he left the White House, his family owned that huge ranch out there, a couple of TV stations, some radio stations, real estate, and
well, what happened to you two?
We're Republicans.
Republicans.
Yeah, we're on the wrong side of the fence.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, Gary the Hopper may be in later, so we can give him a hard time.
Yes.
Well, so you know, and it's not to. There really is a difference. You know, John or I go there because we have jobs elsewhere. We give up some time in those jobs. You've had employment. You've owned companies.
Yep.
I own a company. I've actually was a lawyer at one point and pretty much lost my law practice because I couldn't service my clients to go do volunteer service. With the Democrats, their service, their job is to be in public office and to make sure that government is growing to advantage their friends who are in public employee unions, the folks working for what we call charitable organization, but really are these charities, the sole revenue of which is government funds.
Oh, I forgot my wallet.
So there's a real difference.
Yeah.
You know, John and I would see it all the time when we were in Concord, and you'd have votes come up, and you could look over the other side of the aisle, and you know they're voting for their pay. They're voting for their pensions. They're voting for their relatives to gain advancement in public employment. That's what they do.
But you know the sad part, even here in the alderman meetings, I never suspect towns or cities or anything like that to be into. Like there's an alderman on 111 whose son is a fire person. There's another alderman whose family members are school teachers. And
So no special interest there.
Yeah,
and they're voting.
Yeah, and they're all voting, for the people. And I think that those people, I thought by law, that they should disqualify themselves,
So the conflict rules in the New Hampshire House are one of disclosure, not prohibition. You're supposed to disclose if you have a conflict. At one point, 3 or 4 terms, the issue came up whether or not the state should continue to fund 100% the medical benefits of the spouses of former state government employees. There was no obligation to do that. It had been traditionally done. There was a bill in front of the House to dial it back a little bit, to ask them to contribute some to those medical costs, the insurance costs. There was a ruling from the bench that this is an issue that if you have a relative who is receiving those benefits, your spouse or some close relative, you at least have to declare a conflict. So what was really interesting is at the end of that vote, there was a line of Democrats waiting in front of the speaker's podium, one after another, to declare their conflict. Did they refuse to vote? Not at all. They voted. They just said, "Oh, I guess I have a conflict," knowing that in their wards or in their towns, voters unfortunately weren't paying attention.
Well, I remember Phil Grazio. Have you ever had him?
Oh, Phil and I are very good friends.
Yes,
he's been on my show.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
friend.
And
He's a
when
good
he
guy.
ran for Senate against Lou D'Alessandro,
Right.
he went into his finances and found out that he was paying his wife $65,000 a year out of his campaign funds, sending her flowers once a week. I think paid for part of the car, the cell phone. I mean, there's a list of stuff, and I'm thinking if I did that, they would have me. WMUR would have me prime time every night.
Absolutely. But
I think WMUR is very biased.
Oh, yeah, they are.
You know, union leader is
Yes. Yeah.
for $1.50 a paper now.
Is it that much?
You don't-
I went and I bought one the other day. I said, I think you made a mistake.
Because I get it
No.
online, and I get
Yeah.
the Thursday and Sunday paper.
So I looked at it and I go, I literally, I was all upset. I literally had to apologize to the storekeeper, the clerk there, because I'm pretty rude at times. You would never know that, and they don't. When I'm reading, I go, oh my God, $1.50 for a little thin paper, and the Sunday paper, which is even smaller, is $2.25 or $2.50 now.
Well, I mean, the economics of that industry have changed. It used to be if you're going to buy a car or something, you're going to buy a house, you'd go to the classifieds or newspaper. It's been a long, long time. I don't even know if they still have classifieds in there, but without that, that's where all the revenue was.
William Lowe would be turning over in his
Yeah.
grave if he saw how the union leader was being run right now.
Well, what did Trump call the union leader when the union leader started beating him up, beating Trump up?
Useless paper.
Right.
Oh, was it?
Would you call him?
yeah. I mean, that's why I
I
love
titled
Trump.
it the useless. Even my bird won't even poop on the paper. You put it in a cage. So what are you going to do?
Well, you have to put the editorial section down.
Yeah.
But then what was really funny is Binney, Bill Binney.
Bill Binney.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
on my little TV show in
Yeah.
Goffstown 3 times when he was running for U.S. Congress.
You got shafted.
Or he was running for the Senate, I mean.
Senate, yeah.
Yeah, Senate. And he sat there, and this is when the union leader and him were going back and forth. Bill would buy a full-page ad, beat the tire out of the union leader. The union leader the next day would have a full-page ad beating him up. So he sits there, and he goes, John, can I give you some advice? I said, oh, Bill, I love advice. Anything, yes. He says, don't pick on somebody that buys ink by the barrel.
Oh, yeah.
He says, it's expensive. Because I love that.
Well, he retaliated by buying in that Citizen Bank building out here. And then
Oh, yeah,
bought
he owns that.
And he started that NH1. Remember?
Yeah.
He eventually
that's for
sold that to someone.
He owns that one in
Yeah.
Derry, New Hampshire. Yeah, he
Yeah.
bought that one.
Yeah.
My friend Al Caprillion used to work for him.
Yeah, well, Bill's done well because he bought NH1, don't quote me on numbers like, 13, 14 million, 15 million.
Yeah, he bought up some little small TV
Yeah,
licenses.
but now the telephone companies are buying up that wave
Okay.
because that's where our cell phones are going to go to, and the dropped calls, the clarity, everything's going to be perfect once they get there.
Right.
And I can't remember what they call the zone, but there's a special zone where the TV is. And he sold it for almost 100 or a little over 100 million. So I'm going, boy, that's a smart business, man.
I got to take 1 minute here, folks. Just 1 minute, please. We are having on October 20th at the Unitarian Universalist Church, we are having a second event for Healing Paws. What that is folks, if you can, if you have a dog or a cat or a husband that's a Democrat, you want to have a neuter, we'll pay for it. But no, but no, if we're having it for people who cannot afford a vet bill, we will pay for it. Okay, and we finally got approved by the state. And we finally got the IRS to approve us being nonprofit.
Wow.
It cost me a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
It really
what a
does.
worthy thing to be doing. That's great.
Yeah, but it's going to be doing all that. We got readers. I'm going to be a reader. Norman Mooney, Eric Goldberg, Amy Majors, Lori Otto, Sydney. You know Lori, right?
Oh, yes.
Sydney Stewart, Pauline Hathaway, and Michelle Fitchbeard, Paula Clark, and Caitlin Russell. We're all going to be readers. And then we got vendors coming in. That'll be Lyndon Goodwin, Dr. Jody McDonald, Charlie Rivers, Bergeron, Renner, Jeff Travis, Peace, Allison Victoria, Coleman, Ron Bias, and Carolyn James. We got a lot of them coming. They all show up. So all this, folks, is we got a lady coming in. We're going to get a face shoot from Susan Ross. A sacred place in Canaan, New Hampshire. We're donating a place for her. Wanda Van Dorn, we'll see about Lynn Nicholson. This one's not coming in. Karen Rockwood Ware will be coming. Caitlin will be doing another. So all these people that are coming in, folks, they're all willingly donating most of the time. I got a lot of them. Didn't even realize it.
Yes,
Yeah.
list.
We got Christine from Lauren Institute. We have people that do the investigations of the ghosts in the house.
Oh,
You know, I don't believe in it, but Sandy Scenario, Zerdo, Andy Bright, all these people that are coming in, Lance and Joe, they're good readers. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them around. And I've had them here before, and all these proceeds, well, from the vendors that pay their fee, and one of their readers make all goes to our new exciting healing pods. So it's all like if you have, even if one of your chickens gets sick, we'll pay for the vet bill.
Oh.
You know, I don't care. I'm not going to discriminate against that.
Yeah,
you know, I don't think.
poor
I think
chicken,
it's wrong.
she sees a different route.
Yeah. You know.
She don't see the vet.
Oh, okay. But anybody there I don't care what your income is, and obviously we can't charge for it because then that means we're making a profit. All the fine lines that you got to go through to become a nonprofit.
What made you think of this? Is it really a worthy thing to do?
I've dreamt about it for years and years, okay, people that have animals. And then the final straw was when my son and daughter-in-law went to the Manchester Animal Hospital in Richmond, and then they hadn't quite enough money because find out, and they owed $24 and nobody even told them they owed it. And then they called and said that their dog was still on ice because they didn't cremate it because they owed them $27. So that's another. And then I had another friend of mine who paid over $2,700 to have the dog, fixed up and all that stuff, and she didn't have the $90 to pay for the medication.
Yeah.
Every dog we will not pay for people like at Manchester Animal Shelter because that would drain us. It's more for private citizens, and there's a couple of vets we have in mind that will make house calls.
Oh.
So I think that's a worthy cause. And then John has a hot dog.
Yeah, hot dog day. Yeah.
That you donate to charity.
Well, in order for me to do it, because I'm a state rep,
Yeah.
I can't see the money or touch the money.
Yeah.
I can solicit on behalf of the dog organization.
Well, I'm going to be right up there. Let me tell you.
But I've raised over $31,000.
Yeah, awesome.
During the hot dog days.
Yeah,
Great.
We
the
used
7 hot dog days,
to,
31.
I'm heartbroken. We used to raised a lot of money for the Manchester Animal Shelter, and I feel bad for the animal.
Yeah.
But it's a personality I didn't get along with. They felt like, they're doing us a favor by doing that. The only one that I could ever get along with was Shelley Greenglass or Greenlaw, whatever, and she's fantastic. So she could be on my board of directors.
Oh.
I have several great people who have experience with the animals and stuff like that. So to have that, you got to have somebody who knows how to get up through the political ways of getting things done. And it took me 4 years. But my reality
set
is
up
coming
in the
true.
IRS certification.
Yeah, that's all certification. Yeah, we had the state now. And it took us a long time, a lot of money.
Yeah, it does take time.
But you know what? In the end, it's all worth it. I hate to say it, but once the Nunu got into being governor, we were able to get in there a lot quicker with a paper. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but.
Well, maybe they streamlined something somewhere.
It could be. I mean, that's been a great interest of his, as it has been for the president. Make in Chris Sununu's perspective, the state and country from Trump much
And
more
folks,
business
just to
friendly.
let you know, I am not looking for that pat on the back. If you want to pat me on the back, donate to this cause because it could be your cat, your dog, or whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Is there a website for it? Can they
we're
go
building it now.
Okay.
But if they have any questions about it, you can go to my website, which is spiritualvisionary.net, and that will tell you.
Okay.
And then I'm planning what do they call it, GoFund?
Oh, yeah, one of those GoFundMes.
Type thing too, And I've got a whole new crew going on. Scott, my roommate, he's the head one, and then I've got a great treasurer. We got all kinds of new people coming in. It's a lot of work, but you know what? In the end, it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Something happens to it, and I died at an early age, but at least I know I've got people who will carry it on.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you have any questions, or if you want to be a vendor, and you can give me a call at area code 603-641-3187, or go to my Facebook. Anybody that has something they want to call, and hopefully you two can come in and be celebrity. We will get your picture taken with you, John, at $2 a picture to donate to, okay? Or anybody wants to come in.
Well,
and
Bill will be at least $10 a picture.
I think
What?
I'm good.
I'm
If
sorry?
you're $2,
15?
I'm good for like $2.10.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll go more like 15 for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was shafted. But Al Caprillion comes in every year.
Oh,
yeah.
Al's still around.
Oh, yeah, he's one of my best friends.
Does he live down in Brookline?
No, he lives in, not Derry,
I thought he was
No,
down
he's-
in
Merrimack.
I always thought he was down.
He got
south of
shafted
Brookline.
at Benning's TV station.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's a really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
You know, so, but folks, if you are really interested, you really want to come. This is Nosy, and this is Bossy, and the one thing that is, my friend Kate gave it to me, and I think I upset her, so she's not on our community anymore, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, I always believe the Spirit's going to have everybody who they want to be there. One of the things, if you don't mind, I'll tell you, Bill, is one of the things I'm looking at you, you're definitely not done with politics.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
there's all kinds of important issues that just go on and on. You know, one that I'd like to mention, if I could,
Sure.
is
Hey,
there's
it's your show.
Oh, not your show. So
No,
can only do
I always turn
permission.
it on, don't I, John? I always
Yes.
turn it over to the guests.
Well, then let me just bring up one thing, and then you know I'll let it go with whatever John wants. But we have a constitutional amendment that's very important on the ballot in November. It's question 1, New Hampshire question 1. Now you're gonna, some of your viewers are gonna see some ads coming out of Massachusetts on their question 1. It's some socialist thing. Who knows what it is? But don't be confused with it. This question 1 is going to reestablish in New Hampshire the standing, that means the right of taxpayers to go into court and challenge government action that is unconstitutional. From 1863 up until really only a few years ago, it was always the case in New Hampshire that if you were a taxpayer and you caught, for example, an alderman voting for pay raises for their firefighter sons, you can go into court and say that's they shouldn't have been voting on that. If you have any issue that is going to affect your standing as a taxpayer, it used to be that was reason alone to be admitted into court. And of course, you know what happens all the time, judges get tired of cases and everything, so they came up with a ruling about, I was in the Duncan case, was it
Yeah.
about 5 years ago?
Yeah, about
6
that.
years ago,
Yeah.
saying, no, being a taxpayer isn't enough to be in our courts.
Yeah.
And so the workaround for that, because it's a Supreme Court ruling, is a constitutional amendment. That constitutional amendment was overwhelmingly passed in the legislature. You know, I think in the House, was it like 300 and something to 9?
Yes.
It was just
Yeah.
a huge vote.
Yeah.
What it needs to pass on the ballot is 2/3 of voters to vote yes, to vote we want that constitutional amendment. It's really important. It's not a partisan issue.
No.
It's basically an individual rights issue. It's the right of an individual to come forward and say, this isn't right, and I can show you in the Constitution where it isn't right.
I know when I voted on it, and when I saw the 8 or 9 that voted against it, I'm going, whoa. Okay, there's a few of them in here.
Yeah.
Because it really is a right. So when the Democrats and Republicans, we all joined hands on that one today.
Yeah.
Or that day.
Yeah,
you
and
know-
and it came up recently. My good friend J.R. Hull, state rep, who's finishing up this term,
Yeah.
up in Dunbarton, came across the fact that Dunbarton had been, along with some other schools in their cooperative district or region district, had been taking too much money from the taxpayers. In Dunbarton, it added up to about $1 million. And so what the school board wanted to do, or maybe it was just the school superintendent, wanted to say, let's have a special meeting so we can spend that right away. That's extra money. Let's find a way to spend it, rather than return it to the people who they took it from. The schools were running without it. He went to court, and among the things that the court ruled on is you don't have standing. Just because you, as a taxpayer in Dunbarton, if they distributed all that, each household would get a couple $1,000s returned to them. That wasn't sufficient standing. That has to end. That's what question 1 is about. We're asking people, vote yes on question 1, because one of the things we've always said about New Hampshire is one individual can make a difference.
Yes.
And this is a way for that one individual. This is a way for each of your viewers, if they got outraged enough and they see wrongdoing that's strong enough, they can go to court and say, stop it, and a judge has to listen to them.
But how did that work? Because I remember JR did prevail, but I think he went in as a group of people. Is that correct?
They went as a group, and the issue was before, once it was brought before the court on whether or not they needed permission from the court to have a special town meeting
Yes.
or school district meeting, I guess it'd be, to spend the money.
Yeah.
And so the courts, the only one opposing it was JR's group. So the court did something kind of interesting. It says, well, you don't have standing, so we don't have to listen to you. But we kind of agree with what you're saying, and so we're not going to order the special town meeting. So it was kind of, we're not going to violate the Supreme Court rule that you don't have standing, but you're making sense.
Yes.
So that's what we'll do.
Here in Manchester, South Namath Road, I am so proud of these people that actually, when protesting the new condo, they want to build all that stuff on there. And there's enough people who were saying no, 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 but the aldermen did not listen. And they let that person, okay, they were going to build all these condos and all this other stuff, and okay. And these people took it to court, and they won. The people won against the aldermen, my say, and I had said this before when I go to the meetings, why do we even bother to go to the alderman meeting? Because they're not going to listen to you. They're going to do what they really want to do, and that breaks my heart. You
know what, though? In the end, and this is important, I really agree, I really support and agree that this amendment should pass, because if there's immediate wrongdoing, then we ought to have the opportunity to take that to court. But ultimately, the way we get the government we want is to vote in people that we want.
Yes.
You can't just go to your ballot and say, I'm going to vote all Democrat or I'm going to vote all Republican. You have to take, it's the responsibility of citizens to pay attention, to say, this is why I want that Republican. John Burt is voting these ways, and gun issues and education issues and government spending issues. That's what I want my representative to be voting on. That's a responsibility we all have, and too often that responsibility is ignored.
What I'm looking at, what I'm gloating over, is that Sununu is doing a hell of a good job.
Yeah, he's doing good.
I mean, he's shaking at the welfare department. Look at all the lawsuits that are going since the. And then,
what's the kids there? DCYF.
Yeah.
He's shaking that up.
Yeah, there's a lot of settlement. There's a lot of settlements that the state is paying out,
and they try to keep them hidden. Yeah, but I think it's the union leader that was drawing them out.
Yeah, it is, and I got to give him credit. And then you got the what's her name? Sheehan, who's a senator, right? And her husband is owns a law firm, so I'm wondering how much of the city business or does it go to that. Then you got Maggie, what's her?
Hassan.
Hassan. Yeah. And look at her son ran that school. That
was her husband.
Yeah, her husband running that school and all that stuff. You can't tell me that they didn't know what was going on.
They lived on campus.
And she got elected.
He was the headmaster.
Yeah. And probably, I can't say that.
And it keeps, more things keep coming forward on that school.
And look at St. Paul's is bringing it out a lot too.
Yeah, there's some problems.
The first principle of modern American journalism these days is to make sure that no news gets published that will reflect badly on the Democrats. So we're not going to hear much about that.
No.
Well, I just thought that's what I was saying. I mean, look at Maggie there, her husband, what he was involved in, and it's all been a cover-up. They made a lot of money. They lived in a house that was paid for by the school.
Yeah, and I think we have to take care. There's no credible evidence that I'm aware of, that at least been made public, that he had any direct involvement or had any knowledge.
Yes.
But the fact is, he was headmaster of a school where there was horrendous abuse going on, and you take some derivative responsibility. He hasn't even been mentioned, at all.
Yeah, can you
now,
really
if he were the bishop of a diocese that had out of control priests, that he would be taking, and rightfully so, a lot of criticism. There is responsibility that goes with the position.
Scott, if you want to if anybody out there that's listening, you want to dispute what we're talking about, or you have a problem with what we're talking about, or you want to say in favor of us, give us a call at somewhere. Here it is. Area code 603-640-3091. As long as you're not name calling and you're not abusive to them, we will very
Oh, I'm used to that.
well. My
Yeah,
my
how will I know I'm talking politics without
Yeah.
being
There you go. But we can't do it on the air here, you know. I want people to be respectful, you know. And if you want to slam me too, that's fine because I'm a wannabe politician.
Yeah.
But I have more fun not running for office. I have more fun slamming the people, especially on Facebook. You've seen me on Facebook.
Oh, yes.
I get a lot, I make a lot of enemies on there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
John is a baby killer and terrorist, just to let you know.
Oh, yeah, I've been told that.
When the NRA,
Really?
yeah.
Yes.
You actually had one of the better stories that I remember telling it a number of different times, and you were with me once when I told it to Ted Cruz. You were talking about violence in politics and the threats you get and all that. And John, at one point, got a threat from some guy in Connecticut.
It was Connecticut.
Yeah, he said, I'm going to come up and kill you.
Yeah.
I'm coming up to your house to kill you. And John's response was, no, you're not.
Yeah.
The guy goes, how do you know I'm not going to? He said, first of all, you wouldn't tell me. But secondly, I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be outside. I'm going to leave the light on. I don't want you bothering my
That's what I
neighbors.
said.
Yeah. He said, come on up. Go towards the light.
Yeah.
How else are you going to do it, right?
Well,
you
that's
know?
it. Well, this was a couple years ago. I got a death threat where the AG wanted to get involved, and I said no, I'm okay. And this is when we had a Democrat AG, and I think it was Brody, the attorney Brody. I think that was him. And we're talking back and forth. And I said, no, I'm okay. I said, look, the idiot didn't block his number, so my attorney has the phone number in case I ended up dead. This is where they go look. But what was really funny is he says, no, we got to take all threats serious, Representative Burt. And I said, look, does your boss really care? And he thought about it, and he knew what I meant. Like, well, yes, we do care, because I'm thinking, if I got bumped off, he'd be happy. Yeah.
And
it was
it's
hilarious.
just amazing that on the other side, there's so much violence, and so many
Yes.
threats of violence,
Yeah.
and then they project over to our side that somehow, very peaceful Tea Party people were violent, which they never were. No.
And we picked
Yeah.
all the trash up when we left.
And even look what's going on this past week. There was a congressional candidate, Republican, out in California a few days ago that had a knife drawn on him. We have this fellow who they're trying their best to write out a history, this Bernie bro, who basically went down to Washington to kill as many Republican Congress members as possible.
Yeah.
He got a whole group of them on a baseball field practicing. And then if he'd succeeded in killing them, it would have pretty much changed the control of the U.S. Senate, where there's only one or two Congress members you need to kill off to do that. That's what he was trying to do. We have Maxine Waters saying, go at them at any given point.
Well,
and
what did
it's
you do
not
with Sarah?
Even in restaurants.
Yeah,
if I'm enjoying a meal with my wife, Maxine Waters says, for the Democrats to go in there, which most of them aren't going to. And luckily, Maxine is turning a lot of my Democrat friends off. They're saying, oh, I'm not even going to vote anymore.
But we look at it as an aberration, but when I was Speaker, this was what was going on.
Yeah,
I mean,
constant.
I ended up having to have, I was probably the only Speaker of the House since I don't know when, that had to have police protection because we were getting calls to the House threatening violence and everything. We're volunteers and just trying to do the best we can and trying to explain it to people. And we have people... We actually found out one of them to call. I'm not sure if he told us was a school board member in a town.
Oh, I did not. Oh, I think I did hear that.
Yeah,
yes.
because he traced his number down.
Yeah.
Doing things like calling my wife saying, "This is the Speaker's house." Well, now I know where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Roxanne's not signed up for this.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, leave the wife and the kids alone.
Right.
But boy, they do.
They want to go after me. I'm too pretty, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I keep telling myself. You know what I just found out was a waste of money, and I worked hard to get to the park where I live. I think I told you this. And they built a new sign, Manchester Police Department, and they took down the old ramp that was handicapped and all that, and they built a whole new porch, and that it really was beautiful. And now they're going to pull it down. All them taxpayer dollars, folks. This is your tax dollars.
Is this up on Valley?
Up over on Walker Street. Over by where I live, across from 7-Eleven and all that. Okay, and then my friend Bill Berry, he really is a good person fighting for the people. And now all that money we've spent, taxpayers' dollars, your dollar, my dollar, they don't realize it's federal money as well. And we pay taxes. Even though I have an apartment, I still pay taxes included. Sure. Now they're going to tear that all down. After spending, God only knows how much money they spend. Does it look nice?
What's the reason they're tearing it down?
I'm sorry?
Why are they taking it down?
Because they moved the Manchester Animal Control into the police department. And so now it's going to be abandoned.
Right.
And they knew all of this.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
This isn't an overnight venture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm glad they did it because I won. And it shows you one person, like you just said, one person's voice can be heard as long as you keep persisting on it and don't give up on it. Yeah. But then when I see that happening, it bothers me.
We live in a unique state for that reason because one person can come forward and really make a difference.
Yes.
So, for better or worse, if we lived in Massachusetts or we lived in California, Illinois, the likes of us would have no voice whatsoever. Now, I know some of your viewers are going, "Oh God, why do they have any voice?" But a person couldn't come forward, work in a race, get elected as state representative, talk to people and become speaker, and it just wouldn't happen that way.
My understanding is in California, maybe if you both know, and we'll see the Democrats are ahead of the Republicans. Then the Republicans they can't run for anything. If the Democrats like Jerry Brown's a Democrat, Maxine Waters,
I think they all are.
Pelosi, the Republicans have no rights in there.
Yeah.
So what they have is some people will call it jungle primaries.
Yeah.
And what it means is that the top two vote getters run off against each other. And in some areas, the Democrats are so predominant that the top two vote getters are always the Democrats. Yeah. So the primary is a way of eliminating any chance of Republican representation. It's not like you have a Republican primary and a Republican will run against the Democrats, just who's ever the top two.
Yeah, Vermont looked at doing that. The left in Vermont, they begged for it. And I don't know why it failed, but it did fail. But it'll be back.
Right. But there is life. I wanted to tell you, when I went up to that Writer Center meeting, there was, and I have to ask you where it is. There's a group of people from Franklin County, wherever, I'm not sure where Franklin County is in Vermont, but they are Republican legislative candidates. I gather there's 3 state Senate positions there. 11, I think I heard representative positions. They've organized. All of them have organized into one PAC. They've hired staff members. They think that they stand a chance of not just getting a majority of the legislative positions in that county, but perhaps winning them all. They're hugely organized, and they're getting a lot of great feedback from voters.
Yes. Well, they're upset over the gun control that they just passed in Vermont for the first time in history.
Right.
That Vermont's ever been in existence. They passed some gun control.
They have a gun control?
Now.
Yeah,
it's in court because it'll be thrown out in court because the Constitution in Vermont is very clear.
And so it's things like you can't buy guns unless you're 21.
Yeah, you can't buy guns unless you're 21. You can't own a magazine above 15, I think.
Okay.
You can own them, but you can't buy them in Vermont. So the AG, Democrat AG, and the state police and local police went to the governor and said, "Do not sign this." All everybody's going to do is they're going to flood to New Hampshire, buy their magazines, and come back, and we don't have any way to track them. We're not going to track them, etc. In the 21, that is not the issue.
I get so disturbed when they say, like, I believe in New Hampshire, didn't they also try to make it so you had to be 21 and over to purchase a gun as well?
It was discussed, but we didn't take it up. Yeah, it never came up.
Because if these they can't buy alcohol unless they're 21. When you're at 18, they can go and serve our wonderful country and not get any benefits from it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? This country is so back rock ages as far as I'm concerned. And Trump, Trump and Sununu are trying to make us more realistic. Does that make sense a little bit? Hey, look, this is reality. How many jobs has Trump brought into this country now? Over 300,000,
Oh,
right?
yeah, more than that.
Yeah. And
Did I
nobody
ever
wants
tell
to
you, Norm,
work.
how I realized I was a Republican? You used a word that always reminds me of that.
That's right.
I was basically elected to a school board in Mount Vernon, and I wasn't particularly political at that point at all. And but people ask me, would you be on the school board? And it's part of what you do, and as part of your civic duty, you volunteer for prior charitable service. If someone says there's no one on the school board, you say, well, okay, I'll step up and do it. And in no time at all, I had the Nashua Telegraph and the Milford Cabinet calling me that conservative Republican O'Brien, and I'm thinking this is just common sense.
Yeah.
If you're going to, I heard myself saying things and I didn't realize this was considered conservative. It just seemed common sense. You're going to take money from taxpayers. Use it very wisely. Don't take more money than you should. Return it if you can. Make sure it's doing what you're supposed to be doing with it, which is educating kids. And, just saying those things all of a sudden not only had me described as a conservative, but actually once I started saying that, I went to look at the national and the state party platforms, and you look at it and say, yeah, that's who I am. I guess that's common sense.
Yeah.
Don't have more government than you need. That's common sense.
Right.
Not to some people, apparently. Don't take more of people's money than you need. Common sense, it seems to me, but not for everybody.
That's like when Manchester. In fact, I got to get a hold of Ross Terrell. You know Ross.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good for it. And I'm very concerned about the education in Manchester and in the state of New Hampshire. I'm very concerned with that core, that one thing called
Common Core.
Common
Yeah.
Core. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm very concerned, and I know that Ross is fighting like heck. Did he win his nomination?
I don't
for
know.
this
I haven't
thing?
seen the results
I
of
haven't
it.
seen the results
Yeah.
either. I guess it's not important enough anymore to put the primary. I'm not going to spend $1.50 to buy a paper. That's ridiculous. That's
Well, I
my
know
library paper.
A lot of people want to move the primary. I didn't realize most states, their primaries in June.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a real problem. Now for the first CD this time, it's sort of unique. It was an open seat, pretty vigorous primaries on both sides, so you have two candidates who starting off without a lot of money. That's
Yes.
often what happens, though, is if there's an incumbent, the challenge is that the incumbent goes and is involved in a late primary, so you have to use up all your money to win that primary, and you have 5 weeks, 6 weeks at most to raise a bunch of money so you can have a good conversation with the voters and get your literature out there and all. And meanwhile, the incumbent's been sitting back saying, like Annie Custer, I have $3 million, so I don't care what you say, what you do. I'm going to swamp
What
your
does she
message."
do?
Besides
sitting on a caucus doing nothing.
One of the things that her campaign handlers make sure she does is nothing publicly.
Yes.
Because she tends to be a very fragile, shrill candidate. She's the one that came across that tracker, if you remember, who was taking pictures of her, I guess, a video camera, and that's just part of what John. It's just part of what you put up with. You're in the public. The public has a right to photograph you, to videotape you. And she got so irritated, she grabbed it from the tractor, left it on. She probably didn't know how to turn it off. Left it on. It's like swinging next to her, and she started swearing, "F this, F that." and so finally, a member of staff said, "Annie, give it back. It doesn't belong to you. You can't do that."
Yeah.
So she gave it back, but didn't erase. Said she shouldn't have, but she didn't erase the video that's on there. So the RNC did this great ad with it. What does Annie think about taxpayers? F this, F that. What a great ad it was. But she's very shrill. She's very arrogant. She's not tolerant of alternate points of view.
She doesn't
So
look
they
that
can't have her.
intelligent. She was a lawyer, right?
She might have been a lawyer. I mean, she earned a living as a lobbyist.
Yeah. But she doesn't look that intelligent. Like I said, they portray. If you look at her pictures, and her hair is disgustingly old. But being a former hairdresser,
Yes.
okay.
you can
gay,
comment
right,
that.
Yeah. Plus being gay, that helps.
John
what
and I
you're
are
playing.
particularly sensitive. You were going to call people ugly. Here.
Yes.
But if you look at her face, she looks like an old-fashioned retired school teacher. that was back in the olden days when they had the rod and they smacked you there.
So,
Boy, I
so,
remember
the
those.
problem is she's raised a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so the conversation she's going to have with the voters is going to be an artificial conversation.
Yes.
It's the Annie Custer they wish they had running is the one they're going to describe as running, not the Annie Custer who's misrepresenting us.
Well, now what-
in Boston.
what
More
country does she-
leftist than Nancy Pelosi. She's that's a hard standard to meet, but she's done it.
Now I've seen some of like more Sullivan and a few others. When they talk, everything is common sense this, common sense that. They speak for 2 minutes, but at the end they've said nothing. Nothing. And I'm like, all right, what did they say? That they
She
want.
didn't win, right?
No, she's gone. But Pappas, he's just as dangerous.
Yeah,
Oh, he's
well,
more
I
dangerous.
liked Maura Sullivan because obviously she was a foreigner coming in. I mean, she just sort of parachuted in here.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't she
You know,
in charge of the Veterans Affairs with Obama?
No, she was in charge, and she held these at some point they decided they were going to build up her resume.
Oh.
And so she was working. She'd been in the military. After that, she worked for 5 or 6 years for Pepsi. People realized, a really attractive woman, good background, former Marine captain and everything. This is part of the stable of congressional candidates we're going to put together. And so in order to make her more politically attractive, they put her 7 months working for the VA, 6 months working for the State Department.
Yeah.
They built up her resume so she could sit there and go, when I was working on VA, Veterans Administration problems, this was my view. So people go, you work for us? Yeah. Well, it was all a sham, it really was.
Well,
and
we
then,
already-
God bless the Democrat voters in the first CD. They saw right through it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a wonderful thing about our state, our country, is we have a right to vote.
Well, and even New Hampshire Democrats, when I was driving through Hopkinton, which usually I put a disguise on, because as a Republican, you don't drive into Hopkinton. They got, Gestapo everywhere. So I'm driving through and I'm seeing all these Democrat signs, but then I'm seeing Trump signs next to them, and I'm going, oh, they're mad because of what they did to Bernie in New Hampshire.
Right.
Bernie won, 78% or something?
I was very upset because of what Bernie did.
Yeah,
Right.
you know
'Cause I
what they
was
did to
going for
Bernie,
it, yeah.
with the super delegates, and they robbed Bernie, and of course I tell my Democrat friends all the time that I said, don't vote with me, they robbed them.
Yeah, they sure did. I was going all the way until Bernie turned his back on us, became a traitor.
Oh, I know. Well, he ended. Well, I know how he ended up with the house on the lake.
Yeah, of course we do.
But because he had some property. I think his parents or something died, and that's where he ended up with partial of that. But there was a big payoff in there.
yeah.
I know there was.
And that's like Obama. I always said Obama was the poster boy, for the Democratic
Oh, yeah.
Party, and they wanted to make it look good. Let's put a black person in the office. Let's make it look good. That's like the one they did with Hillary Clinton. The whack. I don't think I've ever met somebody so whacked out as she is. Wouldn't that be scary if she
She's
hadn't
a
got
very-
elected?
Very unethical. candidate.
No, is she coming
I mean,
back? I know the Democrats don't want her, but
We could only hope.
I know.
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to use. I don't see her being alive more than 2 more years.
I don't know how unhealthy she is. I mean, she does stumble around quite a bit, but
Well, they had her on stage. They showed a picture of her. That wasn't supposed to say answer. Then when this guy was giving her a shot.
oh really?
Yeah, but
I
I rewrote that. Thank God for Comcast, because you can roll. I roll it back. And I
I
looked.
wonder what the problem with it was. I mean, because clearly when we saw that picture of her being, kind of pushed into that van, suffering from something. They said heat exhaustion, but apparently the temperature was like 80 degrees. Something
Yeah.
like that. So
And her husband has dementia.
it doesn't seem to slow him up a bit. Did you see those funeral pictures of the guy? I mean, you have
Eyeballing the girl there.
yeah.
I mean, on
he
his
has got
defense,
that part, yeah.
she was a pretty girl, but still,
Yeah,
if the camera's looking at you, you don't go, ooh, you kind of,
Well, he cares for $250,000 in every speech he gives.
I know.
Is he still giving speeches? I don't think his marketing for
But I mean,
speeches is
it-
what he.
they
I,
was
I
giving
wished
them-
I could just get paid $250 for a speech or $2.50 for a speech, but I can't even get
Well,
that.
I'll write you a check out here coming up for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I bet you there's a group out there that'll pay you not to talk. To
Yeah.
you got to go the other direction.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's a lot
We're
of
gonna start a new voting party. When not the Republican, we're gonna call it the John and William electoral party now.
Yes.
The new campaign, and they're going to be campaigning. And I'm going to be the treasurer, by the way.
Yeah.
So I
Sounds
can
good.
cut the money this way. And then we're going to have that blue parade. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
I mean a thing there. I'm gay. I don't believe in the gay pride day, and I don't believe in the gay marching. If we're going to all that, all these parades. So John and I are going to have a blue day parade where everybody wears blue. Stuff like that.
What about red there, Norm? Can we have?
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
what about
red.
red?
Yeah, there you go. You do it
Yeah,
right.
red day. Yeah.
See, I don't believe in all. I think all these parades that unless they're for veterans and so forth, like the Gay Pride Day, I think that causes more animosity.
Yeah, it's to
than
separate
You know what I'm
people.
saying? And then that's all these parades are doing. They're separating one from. They're making you not like.
No, nowadays they seem to, don't they? It's sort of, I'm going to get in your face.
Yeah.
I mean, the parades used to be sort of on national holidays. Your
Boy,
4th of
when
July
I came out of
parades.
the closet, boy, you didn't tell anybody you were back in the '60s. Boy, when I came out, I forgot I had curlers in my hair and all that stuff. But just be who you are. You don't need whether you're a born again Christian, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever. Just be who you are.
I am so concerned about the identity politics that the Democrats play, because it's slicing and
Oh, yeah.
dicing us.
Yeah.
Our national motto, which is being forgotten, is the Latin term "e pluribus union," among many one. Well, we're still at a pluribus, but they've forgotten the unum, the one.
Yeah.
And we keep on hearing about how this group needs special rights and that group needs special rights.
Yep.
And the result is, I think as we saw in the national election in 2016, that for the first time, whites started to vote as an identity group. That's so bad for our country.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's understandable. If you demonize a group long enough, they're going to start to have group identity. And, we see where that goes. The prime example is, I remember when Yugoslavia broke up, when communism lifted its grasp on Yugoslavia, and you had all these ethnic and religious groups that got at each other's throats. You look at a country like Brazil, which has never really assimilated its various groups very well, and the conflicts in that society. We don't need that in the United States.
No.
You don't care, I don't care what my ethnic background is. I don't care, and you don't care what our sexual practices are. They don't define who we are as worthy individuals, and it just
that's
matters
the
of
whole thing,
privacy.
That's what I'm saying. Is I don't understand why they have to have the LB whatever that gay community thing. I won't join it anyway. It's, well, you're part of our community. I tell them, no, I don't belong to any community. I'm an individual who believes in what I believe in, and I was one of those born again Christians, and oh my God, I was going to be condemned to hell, and all that stuff, and because I do second readings and stuff like that, And if a true Christian should never ever judge somebody else, and that's why people are going to the pagan, because pagan says, "Be who you are, but hurt no one." And I'm a firm believer in that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a spiritualist. I'm not any religion. And do they still have salute the flag at the State House?
Yes.
No, they do.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's what makes sense. And I don't like it when the football players are not, they don't appreciate our flag and they're kneeling. What are they proving by? One guy says, they're celebrating God. No, they're not.
It's certainly their right to do it. No one's ever suggested. I don't think President Trump is suggesting that we should remove that right. It's an intrinsic right. On the other hand, is it a good thing they're doing? We get to pass judgment. It is not a good thing.
No.
That flag is a flag that so many of us know people died for, people fought for. My father lies in a grave in Arlington National Cemetery, where veterans of 3 wars are interned, and he fought hard for that flag, and it shows him disrespect when an NFL player, particularly one earning millions of dollars a year, goes to his knees and shows disrespect to a flag that my father, when he was 20 years old, ran towards right after Pearl Harbor to join up. That's wrong. It's
really
offensive.
Yeah.
Can you be offensive? Free speech says you can. Is it right that you're being offensive? No, not at all.
Well, and my biggest thing too that I look at is that it's a private company. A lot of, because I'm on Facebook right now, I'm having this debate, and I tell everybody, I said, look, the owners said do not do it. Well, but they have a right. They do have a right, and I'll fight that right all the way. Do it on private time, not on company time.
So if you run a little factory and some guy says, I'm just going to take a knee every once in a while here when I'm at the assembly bench, or if I run a little company, I have 8 employees. If we're working away and all of a sudden, as the customers are coming into the conference room so we can try to sell them our service, one of the employees says, I'm going to take a knee right now. I'm not going to put up with it. I'm going to say no. I mean, you're great. I don't really care what you think about the flag at this point. What I do care is you're hurting my business.
Yes.
And I have a right to tell you, don't hurt my business.
And they're hurting their business.
So they sure are.
The people have spoke, the public.
Well, a friend of mine was working in this one factory, and this guy would go lay on a rug, and I hope he washed it, but you never know, But he laid up there, right? 5 times a day, he would literally pray to Allah. Now, if you're a Christian, you can't do it. They're not going to let you do that.
No.
I respect everybody's right, like you just said. I don't care if you're in the park or wherever you are, but if you're, like you just said, on your time, my dime, or whomever, no, you're not going to do that, And I should think that we would have a right to say that.
That's what all these religious freedom cases are about.
They're abusing it.
We have, it is wrong to act mean, to discriminate, to refuse employment to people because of sexual identity, because of race, because of gender, but it doesn't mean that it is a constitutional violation. You can't force tolerance. All you can do through force is produce more intolerance. And we could go on and on here, but that's that baker out in Colorado. They're just terrorizing that guy because he has a firm religious belief that says, I just won't participate in it.
And there's a cake place down the road.
Yeah.
Go down there.
Yeah, and as he was pointed out, he has many customers who are gay who come and say, can I have a birthday cake? Sure, yeah. He wants to sell his product. Would you please use your art to celebrate an event that is against your religion? He's saying, no, I won't do it. They're terrorizing him now.
Yeah.
They're still going
But
at it.
didn't he win his case in Superior Court?
He won his case in Superior Court, but they're still coming at him, both in that case, plus activists are going to him and saying, will you build a funeral?
At Walmart.
Whatever, bake a funeral cake, that says certain things. He says, I can't do it. A cake that has, like, satanic representation. He says, I'm a Christian. Can't do that.
Well, there was the thing about Walmart. Walmart had their own bakery, and they made something to do with the. I can't remember what it was. I know it wasn't Christian. It was really offensive. Something to do with the Islam religion, and they said, yeah, we'll do that, and yet they did that, but yet. They went, and stuff like that. And yet they went to a Christian cake,
Right.
That's like with me in my office, and I do readings. I do when people that come in that are on welfare, I won't take their money.
Mm-hmm.
It's your tax dollars and your tax dollars that are paying for this. However, I will say, let me donate it to you, okay? Because I'm not going to allow myself to get sued. You know what I mean? I don't feel in my consciously that I have the right to take the money that is supposed to be going to the children for taking care of the children, to feed them, clothe them, or whatever. I don't have that right to take that money. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have a conscience I have to live with, and I've been pretty fortunate so far. But I do say, well, if you want to make a donation to this or that, like maybe make a pie. One week I had 4 apple pie, and today I can.
So this kind of issue came up when I was speaking. You probably remember it, John, because we had some information come out that families that were on welfare were using their money to buy alcohol and cigarettes and all. Now, I have a real libertarian bent. If you want to drink alcohol, if you want to smoke cigarettes, if you want to smoke marijuana, go ahead and do it. I don't. I think that's all pretty crazy stuff. But nonetheless, if we're giving you money, don't use the money we're giving you to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes, to buy your recreational drugs. It's nothing more.
Yeah, when you pass in that law so you can have it.
Yes.
Well, one of the things
we did pass some reform.
Yeah, one of the things I'd point out is, if you were my neighbor, Norman, and you came to my door and said, I'm having trouble getting enough to eat this week. I've run out of money, and could you help me out? You do it, I'd do it, saying, sure, I'll help you out. Okay, I'll give you some food, I'll give you some money. Here's $50. Go out and get yourself through the next 2 or 3 days until your money comes in. I'd be real irritated if you ran down the store and bought some cigarettes and bought some beer with it, because not that I should control over whether you smoke or you have beer, just don't use my dime to do it.
Do you see where that woman got fired because she refused to take the woman, what is it called, EPT card?
Oh, EBT, yeah.
I met with her. I'm trying to remember her name.
Yeah.
She's out in Keene.
And
she was my hero.
She would not allow them to pay for cigarettes, saying she got fired from it.
Yeah.
Right.
But she did the right thing. She got a lot of support on that. They had to hire her back.
You know how awful the Obama administration was? As a result of that episode, a company called, I think it was LexisNexis, came to me and they said, one of the things we can do is we can check through our databases, check and see if there's been a double issue of EBT cards by a couple of states, or if there's been misrepresentation of assets. And we tried to push it forward. They didn't want to do it. We eventually got Governor Lynch to do it because he came to me saying, we have a judgment against the state and we got to pay it off. Now, most people don't realize the state doesn't have to pay a judgment unless it's been appropriated. And so my response to that is, you want a special appropriation? Yes, we do. I said, we both have a problem. You have a problem because you need that money. My problem is I want you to adopt a pilot program that shows the welfare abuse. And so we did a trade-off. And what we found as a result of that program? That food stamps, we found that 80 people who were getting food stamps in New Hampshire had just purchased new vehicles. One person owned a condominium in Miami Beach
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
$1 million. One person just purchased a Cadillac Escalade. I think it was actually the 80 figures where people were getting food stamps in New Hampshire and in Massachusetts. And we went, now the food stamp program is funded entirely by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We went to them and said, this is a pilot program. We took a sample. This is what we came up with. Would you like to participate? We will allow us to save you all this money. And their response was, no, we're not interested in that. Literally, we're not interested in that. Our goal is to get these food stamp out there, the EBT cards out there, not to point out that they're being misused.
Yeah. Well, if I remember right, too, Bill, what disturbed me greatly was when I think it was the Department of Health came back when we found, 10% abuse?
Yeah.
And he says, he basically said, look, I don't have the man hours to fight it,
right,
and it's a cost of doing business.
Right.
And I'm going, but this is the tax.
But it's even worse than that, John, because this company was saying we won't charge you a penny. We'll only take a percentage of the savings that we realize.
Really?
And so
I didn't know that.
we went to Lynch's, Governor Lynch's Health and Human Services Commission or whatever. He said, no, it's just too disruptive. It's too disruptive. And he came and said, we don't have personnel. I said, you don't need personnel. They'll do it. It'll be done privately. It'll pay for itself. Yeah, no, this is too complicated.
I can remember when I first moved to Manchester 30 years ago, and I could literally, they can't arrest me now, against the law, right?
Yeah, it's long enough. Yeah,
okay.
Statute of limitations.
There's no statute of limitations on murder, so be careful.
All right. Welcome to Norm's Community Corner.
Hi, Norm.
Hey.
It's me.
Hey, how we doing, Mary?
I've been listening to you guys.
Okay.
Some of these people, you got Granite Street, there's about a half a dozen out there, people hand money out to. And I disagree with that. These are much younger generation out there waiting for somebody to hand them money. Why can't they go and get themselves a job that they don't want to? They don't want to pay taxes like everybody else. That's why they don't want, because they even said they don't. Why should I? I make more money in 1 week than you can in a month.
So you're one of those mean people that think people should get a job?
I sure am. At my age, at 70 years old, I can get a job doing dishes, doing anything that you want.
That's
if
right.
I can do it, they can do it.
Absolutely.
They just don't want to.
Yes. Yeah, it's sad.
And if you want to call me mean, be my guest.
Mary's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
We've
They're
been
too
friends.
young to be out there. You know, they don't ask for a few, maybe quarters or two. Oh no, they come up to you and ask you for $5.
Yeah.
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 You know, I won't do it.
No.
No,
I work hard for my money, my Social Security. I won't give mine out. You want to phone and say, I'm going to take you to the store. I'll buy you groceries.
Yeah.
Oh,
You-
no,
you know-
they have the money. No, because they want to go drink. That's why.
You know, one of the things that we don't realize when we give people money like that is we're taking away their dignity. Dignity comes through being able to support yourself. There never has
There's too
been.
many jobs out there.
There never.
Too many jobs out there to get to those young people to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no employment out there that is bad
Oh, yes,
employment.
there is. You look going up
No,
and
no,
down
that's
that
bad. That's
street.
bad
Oh,
employment.
you're gonna see help, help,
Okay.
help.
Oh yeah. You know, he was just saying that, you know, there's nothing worse, you know, there's a job out there for everybody.
Yeah, and there's
There's a job for everybody.
and
They've even doing dishes now.
Yeah.
I've done dishes that didn't kill me.
yeah.
Oh, it ruined my nails.
Now, and the point I was making is that there's no job that's dishonorable.
That's right.
You know, all
right.
all employment, and it gives a person a self-worth to come to the end of the week, get a paycheck, and say, "I'm taking
right.
care of myself."
You know, when I first started working, and of course I'm only 37 now, but nobody ever went a 45-year-old son. No one ever believes that. But the first job I ever had, I got $10 a week. Okay, I bought my school clothes. I even had time when I took my mother out to dinner, my foster mother, and back then, and $10 a week back then was a lot of money.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
sure was.
I even put $2. My mother made sure I even put $2 a week in the bank. You know, so but everybody, oh no, they're going to make 15, 20. I agree with it. The people that are older have apartments, have children, have try to work. You know, I do think that the state of New Hampshire is lacking on the hourly rating. I think they should go between $10 and $12 an hour.
Or on the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Well, it already is.
You know what the minimum
Well,
wage?
not the
You know
minimum
what the minimum wage is and always will be. You want to know what it is? Zero.
Hey, money is
If
money.
you don't
When I
work
first
and
got
you
my
take the
job, I
jobs
worked
away
for
because they
$2
can't
an hour.
afford people, then they don't get
You
a
know,
job.
a job
That-
is a job.
Yeah.
That's right.
when those states that increase their minimum wage, quote, minimum wage to $15 an hour, what they're saying to a bunch of people who are only worth less than $15 an hour, your minimum wage, by the way, is zero because you're not going to get employment.
No.
You know where the minimum wage started, Norm? It started in the 1930s and was pushed by unions who were afraid that blacks, African Americans, would take away their jobs. So they wanted to make sure that there was a minimum wage that would, from their racist perspective, would turn employers to them and hire them.
Wow.
Yep.
So,
Hey, Mary used to be my bodyguard when I started to fight. She'd beat him up
I
for
know.
me.
He wouldn't finish it.
Mary and I,
You know, I'm driving by McDonald's now and Dunkin' Donuts that say, you know, start working today
Yeah.
for $10, $11 an hour.
yeah.
right.
You know, so this economy, you know, because of Trump, President Trump is going to produce higher paying jobs.
But you know what? Now they're going to that. What do they call it? Kiosk now, where they go, you
Oh,
order
yeah.
it, you pay it
But
online.
see, that's proving the point I was making. The true minimum wage is you don't have a job.
Yeah.
Because if you increase it to an uneconomic level, then you're going to get restaurants, which are typically where you see the minimum wage being paid most often, will go to automation.
Yep.
You know, and you look at what was it? Seattle came up with first place that came up with $15 an hour. Restaurants call you. You go into Seattle, you don't find restaurants around the borders at all
If you
because
don't make enough, get a second job.
There you go.
Boy, you are one of those mean ladies.
I am.
She is.
I am. I believe in working. If I could go back to work, believe me, I would go back to work in a heartbeat. I had four different part-time jobs, plus my regular job, to keep my head afloat.
You don't want
So
to.
if I could do it, sure heck everybody else.
We
can do the
should
same
we should
thing.
have her run for state rep, huh?
You don't want to join me in Concord and help me, do you?
No, I would love to be in Congress. I would love it.
well, talking about minimum wage, that's $100 a year.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mary, if you come to the event, You know, like we're having here. Mary makes the best homemade baked beans. And when I have it at the event, they go very. She bought, what, 2 crock pots full last time, Mary?
Huh?
How you want, what, 2 crock full of homemade baked beans?
I
or less?
did, yeah. I
And
had
they
the
went-
2 crocks full.
Yep.
And, and I had, what do you call it, chili beans, too.
Yep. And she had some soup. I mean, everything went,
Yeah.
you know. So, okay, well, Mary, we're going to let you go, and I'll see you outside now, all right?
See you later.
All right, bye-bye, dear.
Bye, Mary.
See you outside when you
Like,
pick it up.
anyone's
Yep.
leaving.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, nice talking with you, Mary.
Mary, I'm surprised at Mary because she's a Democrat. She's all about it, you know. But I applaud you for your opinion there, Mary. I think it was right on. People can work 2 or 3 jobs.
Oh,
if
they
want
can.
to.
And,
You
I
know?
mean, I grew up on a farm. I shoveled manure.
Me too.
And I learned how to kill flies because I was so bored milking cows. You'd sit there and almost fall asleep at 4:30 in the morning before school because I had to milk one part of the day, it was morning or night, and I wanted to wrestle at night, so I had to milk in the morning. And so I'm sitting there going, all right, and all these flies just bugging you. And I learned how to kill them.
I learned.
Because of boredom. But, if I can sit there and milk cows at 15, 16 years old, I mean, somebody can, do anything.
The first time I ever, because I went on a farm pro, the first time they told me, this is how naive I was. They said, you got to pull the cow's tail 3 times. I go, oh, okay. So I pulled the tail to pee. And then they said, that's going to be strawberry chocolate. So I'm there, I'm trucking through, and all one's white milk. Talk about being naive. But I learned more on that farm than I ever learned. I learned that I can be self-sufficient.
Oh, yeah.
I got my gorgeous tin, but I learned how to drive a truck and then tipped it over.
Yeah,
get
we
it
all
back
3.
over.
My first job was on a truck farm in Framingham, Mass. Paid, I think it was like I was 14. I was paid 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
And I felt proud. I'd end up at the end of the week, I'd have net pay of like $18. Or something like that.
Yeah.
But
It
you
was
worked
good.
hard for it. But you know what? Weren't you
Yeah.
proud of your accomplishment?
Oh yeah. And and it was. I came from a large family. It's 6 siblings, 7 of us all together, and so the ability to do things like buy your own school clothes and buy your school supplies, help out with the family was just wonderful. Yeah. It brings dignity. It still does.
And when you make somebody dependent on government, that strips every bit of that.
It really does. It really does. And we hear about like these Mac jobs, McDonald jobs. You know the great thing about McDonald's, it does have a huge turnover. It's about 100% a year. That means if you stay there, you join them and get your $14 an hour to start. At the end of a year, you'll be a shift manager. You'll be earning $35,000 a year because all they need are people that will show up every day and be have half the wits about them.
Yeah.
And
just show a little incentive.
There's a guy who is a district manager of Burger King. He makes like $150,000.
Oh,
yeah. And they'll move people up. They train people.
And even Walmart will pay you decent if you are willing to stay more than a year.
I remember in my law practice, I had a woman who was worked at Walmart, and she had to go to work there. She was in a divorce, small kids, economic challenges and everything. That was about 25 years before I was working on some real estate issues for her. And she said, this has been a wonderful company to me. I joined, I went to work in Maryland. I'm up in New Hampshire now. I'm earning, I own my own house through working for Walmart. I'm helping run part of the warehouse up here. It's been great employment. They stick with their people and keep and train them.
And I know several truckers. They pay them very
well.
I bet.
Yeah. They drive nice trucks.
Yeah.
My granddaughter, who is 19 now, just turned 19, we almost lost her to suicide like 4 or 5 months ago because of bullying on Cypress Billing and people
Tell her to
around
stay
her.
off there. That's
Oh
not
yeah,
worth
now
it.
she's not even. And now I am so proud of her. She's going to the Portsmouth Community College, studying to be a veterinarian tech.
Good.
She does volunteer work at the Manchester Animal Shelter, and she also works a full-time. So
We
go to
forget,
show you they can do it.
we forget how devastating the cyberbullying can be for younger people because John and I sit there and we get called all things on social media and we laugh. We have our own sense of who we are and what is important to be said about us. For a young person, it can be so devastating. I mean, we really have to. I've always monitored. I have 3 children. I always monitored what they were hearing and seeing and doing online. Primarily because one of the reasons I just didn't want them to be bullied that way.
My grand, I'm a psychic, so my granddaughter, Grandpa, this guy gonna like me, or that one gonna do this, am I gonna do what? I'll say, look, see, I don't recommend people who do reading. I don't recommend that they do readings on their family members. Okay. One thing I will tell you, Bill, Honorable Bill, there, you're gonna be around till you're like 103 years old.
That's great. That really not from my wife.
Yes.
But from personally,
She
I'm
can
pretty
put you
pleased.
around the wheelchair. You can say, the food's over here,
Yeah.
honey. But
For-
I actually helped one. I actually am telling you you're in pretty good health.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. It's just amazing how you can live a life of debauchery and still end up okay.
It
I
makes you
guess.
stronger.
Yes.
That's
Gets
all right, you
stronger.
know? It makes you strong. Well, when John took care of himself, and now he knows he's going to extend his life like up to between 85 and 95 years old.
Yeah.
I had this woman who did tarot cards on me. And she scared the hell out of me because she told me, because none of my family went past 60 or 67. And of course, I'm going to be, well, not old, no, I'm going to be 73. And I outlived my whole family members. And I am so blessed because she told me that I wasn't going to make it until I was 67. I had to change my whole lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
I had to give up my alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've been sober 22 years now.
Wow.
Congratulations
Long time.
on that.
And I haven't smoked a cigarette in 5.5 years.
Wow.
Matt Cotton, you know.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Matt, yeah, good.
Matt used to be my co-host. He hypnotized me for cigarette smoking,
Yeah.
and I haven't smoked one since.
Oh,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and my partner, anybody can accomplish. I guess why I'm saying this, and you guys, look at you. You've all worked very hard. Your lifestyle didn't come very easy to you. You said you had your own business, right?
I do. I mean, I've been a lawyer, and I decided, these clients running businesses, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult than.
Yeah, but I mean, you accomplished it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
We have
you worked hard because you're not afraid to work hard because you're a Republican. That makes a difference. But no,
Well, and I've
you're
had
not
the
afraid
fun
to-
because there's
Yeah.
something real satisfying about creating something out of nothing. When I finished up, finished up as speaker, then I started the company and everything. And there's 8 jobs out there now because of what I did. And I'm not a miracle worker.
No, but
I
you
would have
worked
liked there
hard
to be
for it.
80 jobs or 800 jobs.
yeah.
But
You got
there's,
15 more people within a year and a half.
well, we'll see. We'll see.
No, I'll believe it for you.
Well, one thing that I've tried to do in New Hampshire, I know Bill has, many good reps up there have, is we tried to cut back because if I understand right, we're one of the highest, New Hampshire is one of the highest, what is it, where you have to get a license from the state.
Yeah, we occupational
yes.
licensing, and we have more
Yeah.
professions, trades that need licensing
Yeah.
to pursue it in New Hampshire than many states, more than California.
Yeah.
And the problem, there's a real problem with that. We talk about criminal justice reform. I swear, I think there's people that do go to jail and come out saying, I want to really turn my life around. And you look at all the requirements of these occupational licensing, and most of them say you can't have a criminal record. Or you
Yeah.
have to, and we're saying, well, then you can't be a barber if you want to turn your life around. You can't be a hairdresser if you want to turn your life around.
Yeah.
You can't be a lawyer. And so, it's really an unnecessary impediment against advancement. Plus, it makes our things much more expensive. You're a hairdresser, so I might well end up offending you, so I apologize if we do.
I'm retired from it, so don't worry.
But when we, and John
I had to
knows
get a
this,
license, yeah.
when we would see these bills come forward saying, 3,000 hours isn't enough to be a master barber, you need 5,000 hours of training and experience. It wasn't consumers coming up and saying, I really want this to happen. It was barbers who have the 5,000 hours and are trying to limit the competition, which increases the price. I used to go to a barber, I won't even name the town because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but he was obviously a master barber. He had his own shop. He didn't give a good haircut. And so I survived it. I went to another barber. We don't need this kind of licensing.
That's right.
We don't need it at all.
Yeah, and the thing, the biggest point is that, I'm high school educated. In 1990, I lost my very good paying job at Standard Register Business Forum. They sent 25 of us down the road when everything went tanking. I had $50 in my pocket, and I started Burt's Tree Service.
Yeah.
That's it. But but in Vermont, when I started it, there wasn't the licensing requirement. And then I learned that Pennsylvania, to become an arborist, you had to have a license and go through all these processes. That would have stopped me. And at the end, I had 2 to 5 employees, depending on the time of year, and I was making almost $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
That was good money.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely right. And you couldn't
That
have done
would have
that
stopped that.
transition. You
Yeah.
couldn't have brought that prosperity to your family.
Yeah.
Like
It's
in
just not right.
Massachusetts,
No,
now,
it isn't.
Do you know what Reiki energy is?
What
Reiki
kind of-
energy.
I don't.
Yeah, I've heard of
It's
that.
like a massage, or you don't touch.
Oh,
you do it.
I've heard of there's like a Reiki.
Yeah, Reiki.
Right,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
you
I
do,
don't know
Reiki
much
energy
about it, but
you
I
take all that negative energy out
Yeah.
of the body, and
Yeah.
you know, help make it feel better and stuff. I'm a firm believer in it. In Massachusetts, if you want to do Reiki energy, you got to have a license,
Oh,
and then try to do that here in New Hampshire
Really?
as well. Yep.
but who's
Did they-
trying? Is it the people that are doing it and they don't want the competition?
Yeah.
See, that's what.
And that's like you
we-
can't, like the bishops has banned Reiki energy from the Catholic hospitals.
Did not know that.
Do you
Because they-
remember when a bill came forward? I think you were in the legislature at the time. It might have been before you were there.
I'm 2010. I came in.
Yeah, it might have been 2006 or 2008. But at any rate, a bill came forward to require licensing of all things, Norman, horse masseurs. If you're going to like massage a horse, Well, I guess it's a.
Did they get
profession.
complaints from horses?
I don't know how it came up, but that was the bill to require licensing. You
Wow.
laugh. That's now the law of New Hampshire.
They passed it?
It passed.
Oh, my
now,
God.
one of the things that I argued against it. And
I'm
so
going to
forth.
repeal that bill.
But well, look it up. And so then I put in an amendment because I was always a troublemaker. I put in an amendment saying if you can massage a human, you're automatically licensed to massage a horse. They voted against that. I remember arguing on the House
They
floor.
want the money.
I remember arguing on the House floor. I said if someone can massage me and I survive it, my horse is going to be okay with them.
Yes.
The horse.
Yes.
And we kind it's ridiculous. We laugh about it, but presumably there's someone out there that says I can earn a living, but now can't because they have to go get 100 hours of training. They have to come up. If they have $50 in their pocket, they're not going to be able to afford the training. They're not going to be able to wait to complete the training. They're not going to be able to fill out the application instead of just going up to some stud ranch and say how your horse is feeling. I can massage them into happiness.
And how many hours do you think you need to fly a 747?
A lot.
500.
That's all.
That's
I
all.
had to have 1,500 though to get my hairdresser's license.
No, 500.
I had to have
fly a
1,500
a
hours.
big
Yeah,
airline.
Yeah.
I'm not. I think I'm at the right number. I'm close to it. To be a master barber, which is a right to
Right.
have your own shop and employ others. I'm not. I
Oh, I
think it's
think
up
it
to
is.
around 5,000 hours.
Yes.
I had to have 1,500 though to get
Yeah.
my license as a hairstylist.
But I go over on.
That's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I,
And
I
so
don't,
it's obviously.
I don't know if you know Jackie over on Amory Street.
Oh yeah, I love her. She's
Oh,
a sweetheart.
Oh yeah, I go there for my
Yeah,
haircut.
I
She
love
gives me.
Jackie.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much.
2
to
minutes
get,
and she's
yeah,
done,
she's.
right? I used
but
to go there too.
if she gave me a bad haircut, I'll go to the guy down the street. But
Well,
Jackie
that's right. I
gives
mean,
me.
that guy I used to go to, and it was fairly evident to me. He always thought my head was like a quarter inch off from where it really was. And after a while, I said, "Well, I'm going to go down the street and go to the next guy and
Yes.
see if he can figure this out."
I
Yeah.
used to do readings on Jackie, so I didn't have to pay more.
No, I don't know what I'm gonna. Well, I've already decided what I'm gonna do. So if somebody's out there, find me.
By the way, folks, we are here with the Honorable former Speaker of the House, Bill Berry.
Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien, I'm sorry, I don't remember names too well. That's why
not
I'm
a problem,
co-host.
not a problem.
Okay, but you're going to be running again, we know that.
Yeah.
And then the new Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
John Burt, the
Yeah.
Honorable John Burt.
But what I told everybody at the State House is when Jackie finally retires a second time and gets done totally, because she's in her 70s.
Oh, yeah.
She retired, I think, mid-60s, and she went home, watched soap operas for 2 days. This is what she told me. And she goes, I'm not watching that garbage. And she started her business back up and started
Is
cutting
she
hair
still at
again.
the same place? On Amory Street?
Yeah, on Amory, yeah. So I told everybody I'm going to find a barber that I can pay that is not licensed in New Hampshire. I want
It's
somebody.
actually, you know this as well as I do. It's a criminal act.
It is,
You
but
go
I
to
want
jail.
I'm going to defy the
Well,
state. and
but the
get-
guy who does it without a license will go
Yeah.
to jail.
Oh, probably.
He'll pay a big fine and go to jail.
Yeah.
I've tried to get my wife, but she don't want to do it.
Well, when we were younger, we didn't have a lot of money.
No.
When kids were first around and we were first married.
You know,
and all that.
when I went
she cut my hair all the time.
Yeah.
when I went to my
Yeah,
daughter,
she knew what
that's
my hair
mine,
was.
so 'cause she's a hairdresser, not new. But when I went to hairdresser school 45 years ago, it cost me $1,500.
Wow.
Now it costs $15,000 to
Really?
$20,000 to learn the same thing that I learned. You know, and the one thing I do believe in economy, three things that I believe are gonna, that will never go broke. People selling alcohol, right? There are always going to be people who want to drink.
Yeah.
There are going to be people. The women are always going to look pretty. So
Yeah.
that's going to be
I
another
do
one.
notice as the years go on, they look prettier and prettier. So
Yes.
there
Yes.
you go.
And those are and people, I always going to want to look beautiful, want to look, have a couple of drinks and depression. But I also have a question for each one of you. Isn't this country built on representation without taxation?
Yes.
Then why are we paying taxes?
Well, it's
Because
it's
'cause-
basically built on the concept that you shouldn't tax someone who isn't represented.
yes.
And I
Yeah.
think
And
that's
as long,
still- I think
so
that's
as long
still-
as we're being represented up in Concord, then they can tax us.
That one, okay. I mean, look at what was his name? Brown man. Jim Brown was that? No, not Jim. The Brown guy who was had to pay a lot of money in income taxation.
There was that couple up in
Lebanon.
over near Cheshire County, Sullivan
Yeah.
County, up
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
That it was a Dan Brown.
Yeah,
Was
they're in
that
jail
his name?
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
it
still
is,
in
yeah.
jail.
Yeah.
They took over $2 million. I mean, he owed $150,000. They
Yeah.
took her building, $2 million building away. They took her house away.
Well, the house sat empty for years, and finally they did sell it with a huge stipulation. We don't know if there's any bombs or anything planted somewhere.
Right, right.
Yeah.
There's a great deal of sadness in that.
There
because,
is.
You know, people take what is a gem of a good idea and go way overboard with it. You know,
And let's be honest, the newspapers know how to blow it up to extreme too. My dad worked for this company many years ago called. He owned many factories, and he told the government, "If you can tell me how much I owe, I'll pay the taxes." They preferred to lay off 2,000 people and close the factories.
is that right?
So-
This happened to your dad?
Yeah, that was back in the 60s, late 50s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, so what his sons did, he closed 2 of the ports in Boston that they owned, so they couldn't bring any ships in, and they couldn't ship them out. So now all these people that went without jobs, and went without, and then they turned them into apartment buildings and all that. It's so sad. People have got to realize you got to work together to make this country prosperous.
Mm-hmm.
America is going to be great again. We know. I'm gonna buy a T-shirt.
Yes,
I'll have you come on with. We'll each wear that.
Yeah.
Think we'll get attacked. Okay. But we are going to be great. You know it. I know it.
I think we're well on the way back there.
Trump is going to be in for another 4 years. So, well, you better learn to vote now, folks, and like it, because I'll tell you right now, I am amazed that I hope the Maxine Waters has not been attempted assassination, or what's her name, Pelosi?
Oh, and Nancy
And
Pelosi.
Pelosi, And I love all these people that are wearing the mask. What do they call them?
Oh, the Antifers or Antifa.
Antifa.
Yeah, Antifa,
where they
yeah.
wear they go beat people up. But yet, if it's so against it, then why don't they, pull the mask down? And what's a Democrat?
Antifa is? They're the successors of the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan were the shock troops of the Democrat Party of their day.
Yeah.
They were anti-Catholic, anti-black.
Yeah.
Now we have Antifa, who, just like the Ku Klux Klan, wear masks, and they're the shock troops of the left. They're the ones who prevent conservatives from speaking on campus.
Well, you know
They're
that-
the ones that commit violence
Yep.
against people who are conservative. They're a bad group of people, and really the most disruptive force in American politics today.
And the funny part is, the Democrats don't realize it. The Ku Klux Klan was started by the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And the Republicans are the ones who were freeing the slaves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why? So if you people read your history,
Yeah.
because you and I are, of course it's all the NRA's fault too. You know that, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
John.
there's the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1965, passed with a majority of Republicans voting for them and a majority of Democrats in Congress voting against them.
Want to repeat that quite loudly?
Well, the reason we had to wait until the 60s to have that kind of legislation was because of Democrats from the South preventing it from passing. You know, you have Senator Russell from Georgia was filibustering it.
Yeah.
You know, and the reason it passed was because Republicans overcame their opposition to ensure that the promise of Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s was finally fulfilled in the 1960s.
100 years later.
Yeah, I get people mad because I say that what's his name, Martin Luther King was a racist.
Well, I don't know whether he's racist. I tend to think I'll disagree with you on. I'll tell you one thing he was. He was a Republican.
Well, then he's not a racist.
No, he was. He was a registered the Republican.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, he was a registered Republican. The Republican Party was the party of the African American community because they realized that these aren't the people putting in the Jim Crow laws. These are the people who formed their party to bring freedom to the slaves, who worked diligently during Reconstruction to make that happen, who opposed the Jim Crow laws, who opposed Woodrow Wilson, who reinstated segregation in the in U.S. employment and in U.S. government employment. These are the ones who we have to turn to pass these civil rights laws. And what the Democrats did at that point, they said, well, we've lost that battle, so why don't we take our race consciousness, which had always manifested itself as prejudice in the past, and start pandering, start keeping these people on the welfare plantation.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I am learning a lot. I want to thank you both for coming in because you really are a lot of things that I didn't realize or didn't know. You know, and so I definitely want to have you two back on again.
This is fun.
Well, you know, one thing that you said, which I was going to allude on, was the plantation, the slave, the housing. Because that's basically what it is.
Oh, it is.
They
It's
have
true.
these huge housing projects. It's all welfare. They just pack these people in there, and they say, okay, every 4 years, come out and vote for us, and we'll keep giving you the
problem
food
with
and-
welfare and the final analysis is it produces dependency.
It does.
Do you remember the reasons we talked about why we were against Medicaid expansion?
Yeah, I'm still against it.
Is because it would basically take a young family of four, and if they wanted to come off welfare, they'd have to give up what was a $10,000 or a $15,000 benefit in order to
Yes.
go get employment.
Yes.
So it consigned them. You'd have to go from as a family of four to be eligible for welfare. You have to earn around $32,000 or less. You would have to jump from that $32,000 up to in the 50s to afford that kind of medical insurance. So it consigns people to government dependency. There's no dignity in that.
No.
At all. There's no freedom in that.
And I remember back in the 60s, I was a child then, but I remember my mother talking about it, that somebody was down and out. And everybody wanted to help that person. You used to have to go see the overseer of the poor. And they knew
in
you.
New Hampshire, you would.
Yeah, and they would say, okay, here's some food, some tobacco, some sugar, and other stuff they would give you, and they say, if you can't find employment, by a week, come back and see us, and maybe you can go down on the woodlot or whatever it
in
was.
a little town that I spent years and years living in, Mount Vernon. I recently moved to Nashua, but I lived there for years and years. We had the overseer, and what they would have is somebody to say, you need some money, we'll get you some food.
Yeah.
If you hadn't got a job after a couple of months, they'd say, well, let's make sure we get you a job in public works. We own some houses which we had to take for taxes. Why don't you move into one of these houses? All of it was transition, though. All of it was to give you a hand up and help you out of this situation.
Yeah.
Now it's just, you can stay on it pretty much for as long as you want to. It becomes generational.
Yes, and that is the problem
and
that
it's,
we
and
have.
it's not good. It's not, we can afford it. We're a rich country. We can afford some degree of that.
Yes.
But it's unfair to the people who aren't given the dignity of being able to be adults and run their own lives and not have to have, for example, a social worker to arrive to make sure there's no man living in the house.
Yeah.
All kinds of junk like that. that.
But no, I've had people, ask me that support expanded Medicaid. They say, John, why are you so set against it? And I said, because it allows the 30-year-old boy to work part-time, or the girl to work part-time. And when the employer comes and says, wow, you're a good worker, I really want to promote you to full-time. Whoa, I'll lose my benefits.
If we have the time, I'll tell you the other. The
that's
most
wrong.
important reason why we shouldn't have Medicaid expansion is there's been studies that look at the medical result of people based upon how they pay for their medical care. There's one famous study that involved 900,000 surgeries in the three-state area of Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York over like a year and a half period. And they looked at those and said, what happened? What were the best results based upon how they were paying for their medical care? As you'd expect, if you had private insurance, the survivability rates were greater, the longevity, 5 years out, 10 years out, were pretty good. The next one below that was actually Medicare. If you're a senior, they factored for age and everything. And it's because Medicare, pays for not a lot, but about 60 to 80% of the cost of care. So the doctor's not trying to get rid of you. The hospital's not trying to kick you out. Then the last two ways you can pay for it is you have no insurance at all. You go in there and you don't know how you're going to pay for it. Or you have Medicaid, which is insurance for poor people. Your survivability was better if you had no insurance at all, because
Really?
because most people didn't realize that up until Medicaid expansion, New Hampshire was very typical of many states. We had uncompensated care. You remember hearing that
Yes.
term?
Yep.
We had uncompensated care, which is we would put aside every year as a state government $200 to $250 million. We didn't talk about it much because we didn't want the hospitals to turn to it too much, and we'd pay that. A hospital would come to us and say, I had 1,000 people that showed up and they didn't pay for it, so we'd say, okay, documented. We'd give you money for that. They knew they were going to get paid for
Yeah.
it. And then the worst way is if you had Medicaid, because Medicaid only pays for about, depending on the state, Mississippi is very high because it's poor, New Hampshire's low because it's very rich. It only pays for about 40% of the cost of care. And so even though the hospital is denied, and I'd never accused them of anything, if you look at that group, they tend to have the worst results. They tend to die most often, and they factored out all the things like, you're older, you're younger, all that. They factored those out. And it's because if you're a hospital and you're only getting 40 cents on the dollar of what it costs to care for somebody, you're trying to get them out of there, and the results aren't good. Medicaid is a poor way to bring medical coverage to individuals. You'd be better off having no coverage whatsoever.
I can't afford insurance. I know what the Social Security is already given to me.
Yeah.
I make too much money for that so-called Medicaid, and I make and stuff like that, and so I just pray every day that nothing happened.
Well, when the argument in the end became, you remember Representative Sherman, who's a medical doctor from out of the Seacoast,
Yes.
a Democrat, he got up and said, well, how can we reject this? This is going to be, what was it, $300 million a year or more coming in to New Hampshire. And my argument in opposition, I debated this on NPR with him, was, first of all, that's not free money. It's not like China is calling us up once a year and saying, New Hampshire, would you like $300 million?
Yeah.
It's money that's mostly borrowed federal money. That's one thing. So it's not free money. And the other thing is it's killing people, because you're paying for Medicaid insurance. As I told him at the time, we'd do better to put buckets of money along Elm Street in Manchester. $300 million, we could put out $1 million a day and just have a gold rush, once a day. At least people aren't killing themselves by getting bad insurance.
See, this is the one thing that I really oppose is the rehab centers. I really do. Yeah. And I'm an alcoholic, okay, and I've been sober. We can get so, I don't care if you're a heroin addict or a cocaine addict, or I don't care if you're have sex addiction or whatever. If you want to stop something bad enough, if you want to, you can do it. Because look, a lot of the people that go into the rehab centers, they come back out, they go right back do it again. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, that's a waste of taxpayers' dollars.
Norm, there's one exception to that. It's an addiction to politics.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just,
but you get
I haven't been able
medical
to cure
care for that.
myself. Yeah, the others are minor addictions. Yeah, John, you know this.
Oh yes.
It
Yeah.
comes
We got a guy that's hiding in the background that's very much into.
No, I'm trying to
But I mean,
trying to kick my habit in
You're not going to be able
2020.
to. You're not going to be able to. It's not going to happen.
You
know.
you had to pay for your own operation, right? When you got the stomach.
No, when I had the sleeve done, luckily the insurance.
I mean, you had insurance.
No,
Oh,
no.
yes. They did pay for it.
Yeah, and we've seen
Yeah,
people
no,
go
state-
through
no, you know what I'm saying,
lobotomies
private
to get rid of
insurance.
that addiction to politics, and that doesn't help. Nothing helps.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I don't drink, but I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, no, it's a better addiction. Good God
Yeah.
almighty.
Well, look at that.
I could probably get more help to get off it.
There you go.
Right.
Look at that man when in Massachusetts serving life sentence, and the federal judge says that they have to give him that sex change, and they want to put him in a woman's unit.
Well, there's actually that doctor, the urologist down there, who killed somebody.
Yeah. His wife
And that's the
is-
one that
yeah.
decided. I thought it was mostly that it was a better defense for him at trial or something. He says, I'm a lady, you know.
Yeah.
But that didn't work out. He did get the life sentence, but he continued with it.
Yeah.
That's
And the government's going to have, the state of Massachusetts is going to have to pay, or the government's going to have to pay for him that sex change.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I don't either.
well, they're saying it's medically necessary. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all politics. It's
Yeah.
all
Well, that's like, I
ideologies.
do not believe that these people that dress in drag or like women or have any change, that they can go in or they can dress it like a woman and go into a woman's bathroom and do whatever they want. And, well, you know, there's a lot of perverts out there, so they can dress. I don't believe in that unisex bathrooms.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't think any,
Maybe I'm from the
any
old
good will come
school,
of
you
that
know,
in the end. That's
you
for
know.
sure.
Well, I know Target, they've lost billions.
Yeah.
You know, and I always wondered, how does a company lose billions, not just 1 billion, but billions, and survive?
Right.
You know, with their misbehavings with the bathrooms and saying, yeah, anybody can go in any bathroom they want, and you know what that does is, you know, it just
Well, the
promotes
government
the
pays
creepies
it
to
off
come
for
out.
'em. Yeah, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, and I just don't. I can't agree with it.
No.
You know, you're gonna get some pervert going in, some little girl gonna get hurt, or some woman hurt. But they
Well, there'll
can
be
go in there.
tragedies, but we won't read about them in the press
Of course
because
you
it
won't.
reflects badly on their
Of course you
ideology.
will. And the only thing you got to read is if, like Trump does it or something like
Yeah.
that. Maybe that Trump.
Right.
How many people?
So you're a
read-
big
knew
you're a big
about-
fan. You're a big fan of Trump, then.
You could never tell that, could you?
I can sense you are. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, look what he's done.
The results have been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
You know, I make a lot of enemies, and that's okay. You know, you've seen some of the posts I put
Oh,
on
yeah.
there, right? And a lot of people don't like me too well, but you know what? How many people actually know that Trump gave over $1 million to Puerto Rico out of his own pocket?
Yeah.
Did you see that publicized?
You know, I have this feeling with Trump that the genius that got him to where he is not translating well into how he governs. You know, because his policies are just great. They really are. And he does some things that none of us can disagree with. You know, close down the. I didn't even know there was a Palestinian office in Washington. Close it down.
Yeah.
Put the embassy in Jerusalem. You know, the only country in the world is our strongest ally, who we were saying you can't choose your own capital. You know, and so he's doing a lot of good things, and then he tweets out these obnoxious things that drive down his numbers. His numbers, based upon the things he's done and the economic success that we are all enjoying now, should be in the stratosphere. Instead, they're unfortunately grounded by some really poor rhetoric. You know, it worked out well during the campaign, but at some point you have to turn to, geez, now I'm governor. I'm not going to be an ongoing.
Sometimes I notice that sometimes he'll backtrack a little bit on different things with policies that he's made.
Yeah, but I think it's
On the whole,
you know, Mitzi. What was her last name? She was at the GOP. Mitzi. She was in the room with him when they on the election night. She's down in D.C. I can't remember her last name. Darn.
What job does she own down there, Joe?
Trying to think what she had for a job. I don't know, but she said, you know, she was right in the room at election. She said they
Yeah.
knew at 3:00 that he won 3:05
In the afternoon?
in the
or-
afternoon.
Really?
Yeah, she was
Really?
just at a
Well, I
GOP
guess
meeting.
if you look at certain target awards. and
Yeah,
precincts,
she said they looked at everything and they said, "Whoa, at 3:05, we knew."
You got
the
him
pres-
thinking about that.
Yeah, Mitzi. I can't remember her last name, but she was really good when she gave the speech. And I raised my hand and I had the question. I said, "All right, so you knew did Hillary know? And she smiles and she goes, we don't know.
Of course you
Yeah.
do.
You know, I would love to know, but she said she did hear that there was things being thrown, F words, everything else coming out of the Hillary camp, you know, because
Really?
she knew.
Was that
when-
Bill or Hillary?
Well, yeah, yeah, I know it was Hillary. You know,
Right.
when it was going downhill, they saw it going downhill. You know, after he started winning state, and you know, like on CNN, they're like, he can never win this state.
Oh,
All
I
right,
remember
that
all
state
that, yeah.
just went with Trump. I mean, they were having a meltdown. I
And so
loved.
you know, it was wonderful times. It's
Yeah.
wonderful that happened. We really dodged a bullet, I think, in getting a president who could enjoy this kind of success.
Yeah.
But his rhetoric just causes him such problems. You know, you look
But
at
I
the,
think
you
that's
look
the
at
media beating him up.
Yeah,
all
but
the
you
time.
look
All
at
the
you
time,
look
yeah.
at the things he said about Comey, for example, earned him a special counsel. He played right into their hands, you know. And I agree he should oppose. We all should oppose this PC, you know,
Yeah.
language, because it's basically they want us to adopt the terminology of the Marxists.
Yeah.
In equity, you know, unequal incomes and, you know, identity politics. This is all Marxist talk.
Yeah.
But so he doesn't have to play into their hands, and that's a disappointment, because I'm concerned that it's going to hurt us during the midterms, and it's going to limit his ability to get things done.
No, I think we're going to gain in the New Hampshire House.
Oh.
You know, I can't get many people up there to agree on me, but
Yeah,
you know,
have-
I'm looking, going. You know, I think we're going to be 235, 240, and
We're going to be
that's-
strong. Okay.
Yeah,
I would love to see a 300, and then I
Yeah.
have a chance at speaker. But at 220, I don't have a chance.
So,
Yeah,
John,
it's gonna be hard.
you won your area?
Oh yes, yeah, I was the
Gary
top.
Hopper won?
Yeah. Gary Hopper won. J.P. Missoula and
JP's going to be in. I saw that. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Really good man.
yeah,
You know, and see, this is, you know,
and Irf, I think his name is, or Keith Irf. I don't know how.
I
you
saw that name, and
Yeah.
it's probably is it somebody who should? Oh, you don't come to the right center meeting, but
Yeah.
you know, somebody that we've come across
I don't
before.
think so. Kirk pushed him, so
Okay.
I didn't endorse him because of Kirk. But you
Yeah.
know, they say he's pretty conservative. But you
Good.
know, when Kirk started pushing him, I'm like, ooh, maybe I should, stay away from him, because I'm not too impressed with his plate reader bill and everything else that he passed through.
Who's that?
Neil Kirk.
Neil Kirk had a plate reader bill.
He
I
did.
thought he's like, you know, Mr. Privacy. Where'd that
Allegedly
come
he was, but
Where'd
now
that
that
come
I'm
from?
seeing some of the effects of what he's done, what he did is he held it off for like so many years, so it was there.
from? Right.
It just came in effect this past year, and now that we have plate readers, where most states are getting rid of them because of the
plate-
misinformation.
what are you
that they're
having?
getting.
Plate what?
Plate readers. So the state police can read your license plate. They can read like 1,000 or 10,000 plates going down the road at a minute. And then what's happening is, like in Boston, they've suspended. This is what I understand. They suspended their plate readers because they were pulling too many grandmas out of cars and with SWAT around her and saying, "Oh, we thought Jeff was in there." No, that's my grandson, and I'm just borrowing his car.
Right.
And now they got grandma spread eagle on the pavement, and the news media, they're taking pictures. It doesn't look good on them,
Right.
so they've done away with it there. But here we have it.
So anything's going to happen to the Second Amendment?
I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I know the red flag bill that's being signed by several Republicans in other states like Massachusetts is a gun confiscation bill, and it's coming to New Hampshire. And I know the person that's putting it in. They're going to file it in late September. And
My sense is, though, as long as we maintain either or both a majority in one of the houses, or the gubernatorial, the governor, it's not going to pass.
I don't think it would, but when we have a high-ranking, Republican senator looking at sponsoring it, that really raises eyebrows to me, and I'm hoping that.
Well, who's talking about sponsoring?
Bradley.
Yeah.
He talked
but
about it last year.
But on the other hand, you said a Republican senator.
Well, that's
So-
true.
so-
It's true. And he did win his primary, so now I'm even more nervous.
Yeah.
Is that Bradley? Is he a Republican?
Well,
He's
he
a
has an
Republican.
arm.
He's a Democrat with a sheep wool over.
Yeah.
A wolf, And one thing that's the big thing I'm concerned about, and because all these people that are killing each other, like in Manchester, not too long ago, they had a lockdown, and they had a guy that killed somebody on Hanover Street. They haven't got him yet.
Well, and see, we've addressed that for the for forcing you to stay in your house.
Yeah.
What is it called? Shelter in place.
Right.
it was in my committee, and of course they kill it. I voted for it, to not allow police to do this, because we mentioned the Manchester West Side. Now it just happened again.
Yeah.
It happened in Goffstown, not to that extent like Manchester's doing, but they're forcing people, and if you come out of your house, they'll arrest you. That's martial law as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I can remember that when I was on Merrimack Street. They were after these 3 young kids, and all of a sudden I look out the window and I see all these kids up there. What the hell is going on? They come in, move your dog back, and we're coming through. And I'm going, you don't have a right to come through my house. I go, no, you don't. You don't have a warrant. You have nothing. Yeah. You don't. Well, if we don't, we're going to either shoot you or we're going to arrest you.
Yeah.
That's just what I was told.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the famous example was when they were going after that Zarnoff brother. The Boston bomb or whatever, and they shut down a whole city.
Yeah.
It always seemed really
hundreds of
outrageous
millions
to me.
of dollars that cost.
Yeah.
And at the end, who found him? A guy walking out in his backyard. He looks over at his boat and he's like, "Hey, somebody's in my boat."
Right.
They call the police and there he is.
Right.
Well, wasn't it in Louisiana when they went up and down to kick people's doors in and took their guns away?
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that?
that was that. Yeah.
Or with that hurricane?
The Hurricane Katrina, I think
Yeah,
it was.
something like
in
that.
Yeah. So at the
Louisiana.
very point you need self-protection.
Yes.
They took it away.
If you want to be Gestapo, vote your Democratic leaders in. But if you want to have free liberty, vote the Republicans in.
And what I tell everybody when I complain about the shelter in place, when the police are forcing you to do this, if a policeman came to my door and said, look, Mr. Burt, John, whatever they called me, we have a shooting right across the road. We want everybody safe. I'm probably going to listen to them.
Yeah.
But I have a right to free travel in this country. And when I'm forced, then I'm going to get my dander up and say, no, I really want to go to point A or point B, and, you can kiss my butt. I'm going to go. It's like these checkpoint Charlies on the highway, the interstate. We are looking, I'm going to be putting in a bill
I
to
thought
stop
that was against the law, though.
Well, it's on the federal highway.
Okay.
So,
Because I know they're throwing a lot of the cases up towards Vermont, towards New Hampshire, a lot of the cases with drugs and all that.
yeah. Oh, yeah, they're all thrown out
They're all
because they have
thrown
no
out because of-
jurisdiction.
Weren't they doing it right near Franconia? as
Yeah, they're
well?
doing it
And
in,
that's pretty far
Lincoln.
south of in Lincoln. It's
It
pretty
is.
far south of the
Yeah,
border.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is we're putting in a bill. We're working on it right now. That's going to, in order for them to do it, they have to get executive council permission and the governor's permission to do these.
Well, gentlemen, we got to be closing up here. I want to thank
Yes.
you both for coming on. It was my honor and pleasure. Hope
Well,
you'll come
thank
back
you.
on again.
Yeah, no.
And you two come back on again. And I've learned a lot. I hope and I'm sure my viewers will do it. This will be downloaded onto YouTube. I'll let you know when it's on. And there'll be pictures on Facebook and all that. So that's why I have everything look pretty when they come on. you know.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
want to thank you both for coming on. It's been my pleasure having
Thank
you,
for
sir.
having me on.
Okay. And you, of course, John.
Yes, thank you.
And have you both come back on. And hopefully you guys can make the event that we're having on October 20th. Okay?
We'll try to do that.
And by the way, I think what I got in the tax, finally get accepted for the registration nonprofit because I use your name.
Oh, yes.
I said, the Honorable John Burt told me to do this.
That's so surprising
But anyway.
because usually that doesn't work out when you use this.
Yeah.
name.
Well, maybe that's why I got a frown.
Yeah, well, you get the frown. I can understand. It's-
But they got the money, they didn't give it back to me.
yeah.
Anyway, so thank you both for coming
Thanks.
on. I look forward to having you both on again.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
remember, folks, every day you are the winner.
Yes. Take care.
Bye-bye.